Powell is Fair, Chapter 25, Regrouping. Megan's leg was throbbing as she tried to keep supporting Lonnie on the hike down. She was wondering just how much longer Justin was going to last trying to climb one-handed when Aisling shouted, "Okay, we're far enough from the city now!" "Glad to see that you're feeling better," Megan muttered. The black mark on Aisling's leg had faded to a light gray. "Yep, your turn. Sit down and get the music book out of the bag. There's a page the king probably still has bookmarked. It might help." Everyone sat down. Megan got out the book and opened it. "There's 2 ribbons and a piece of paper shoved in the book. Which page do you mean?" "Probably the one marked with the Medal of Honor ribbon." "My dad uses somebody's Medal of Honor as a bookmark?" "His library matters to him. He likes bookmarks that mattered to somebody. Try reading the song." "This is a good time for music lessons?" "Bardic magic is some impressive stuff. I don't have the knack, but you do, and I've known some other bards, so..." "You've known some... How old are you, anyway?" "As old as the trees. Well, as old as some young trees, but totally trees that count as trees, not saplings anymore." "I'm sorry I asked." Megan looked at the words and the notes on the marked page and began carefully singing them. The words weren't that hard to pronounce at all once she got into the groove of it. She almost felt like she knew what they meant, even though she didn't speak the language at all. It felt somewhere between a lullaby and a work song. When she finally looked at Justin, Megan thought for a moment that he was going to fall asleep as the expression on his face shifted. Trying to analyze it, it took her a minute to realize she hadn't yet seen him when he wasn't in pain. With a little more singing, while her leg remained swollen and scratched, the intensity of the wounds decreased, not looking as angry. The pain also lessened considerably. Lonnie didn't just look more relaxed. When the pain eased, she started to drift off almost right away. "Are there going to be a lot more of these music lessons?" Megan asked Aisling. "You bet!" "So what's the first rule of barding?" "Providing excellent protection to your horse," Aisling replied immediately. "Huh?" "The second rule is a lot more helpful," Aisling acknowledged. "That's about inspiration." The walk was much easier after that. Not being chased certainly helped. Their first encounter with the dogs initially put Megan on edge, but Justin just walked up, extending a hand. The lead hound sniffed him, then bounded away, followed by the rest of his pack. After that, there were no more difficulties, and no other packs approached them. When they finally reached the unfordable river, the makeshift ramp Kasha had laid on the hound's side of the bridge had been knocked over. Megan took a deep breath and reminded herself that Kasha was probably fine. She also had to remind herself that they hadn't run out on her and the cats. Megan didn't want to have run out on anyone. As they carefully clutched the ropes and inched their way across the bridge, Megan looked up enough to notice smoke in the distance. Not a lot and not very far. "What do you think that is?" "Campfire, maybe," said Justin, moving carefully along the ropes, taking twice as long as the girls due to his injury, but looking glad to not be swimming. From there, it didn't take long to find the source of the smoke. Kasha and the cats had settled on the far bank and made a small camp. All of them looked the worse for their earlier encounter, still scratched and bruised, but alive. The chariot looked the worst of all. When they first walked into the camp, Kasha was working on replacing a broken axle with limited luck. "I'll fix it tonight," Lonnie offered. Kasha grinned wide, leaping to her feet and limping over to give Lonnie a hug, then Megan. "Gently," Lonnie groaned, clutching at her side. Both cats rose, Jude heavily favoring a front leg as they made their way over to nose at the girls and greet them as well. After the hugs, Kasha looked at Justin. "And who is this? What have you girls been up to? What's with the costume? Do I need to get out some fives?" Lonnie sighed, but Justin just glanced at her oddly at the stream of questions. "Justin of Ludlow," he replied with a slightly awkward bow. "You're wounded. The packs?" Kasha grinned. Nothing you can't kiss away and make better, handsome." That time, Justin blushed brightly. Kasha took the opportunity to press her momentary advantage and looked to Megan. "You know what they say about the boys of Ludlow, right?" "That they're very responsible and hard-working," Lonnie interrupted, narrowing her eyes at Kasha, moving to rest a hand on Justin's shoulder. "Especially by people who want their chariot fixed." Kasha sighed. Yes, that was it. Very hard-working. "So what was your plan for now, Justin?" Megan asked, eager to change the subject. "My original plan was to go home, hear people cheer, see the Lord's appellant quake in their expensive and overly clean boots, and be set for life. Now it's to fulfill my agreement with the Queen by putting the sword in the stone, and then figure out what happens next." "I don't see how the sword's going to help us save Rick if we stick it in a rock," Kasha pointed out. "It'll be fine," Megan insisted. "We'll do the deal and then use it to save my dad. We can't just leave Justin stuck here." She settled in by the fire to enjoy her first hot food in some time, and to read through the music book more for as long as there was light, occasionally asking Aisling questions. The pixie always answered, but in her typical fashion. Nonetheless, Megan was pretty sure she was getting the general idea. Lanny examined the chariot, making notes, and then had food before a long nap, not trying to do any work while people were awake. Kasha and Justin talked over dinner. Megan didn't catch much of it, but there was some discussion of swordplay and life in other centuries, in between Kasha trying to draw more blushing and Justin fending off the feigned advances. Finally, Megan settled into sleep, as did the others, with Lonnie waking up to work on the chariot. They were awakened by Maxwell's warning snarl, Jude joining in moments later. Megan clambered to her unsteady feet, looking around for the disturbance. Her first impression in the dim light of early morning was of a small, glowing ball of light floating nearby. A rustle and splash drew her eyes to the water's edge, where a tall, gangly woman with grayish-green skin was crawling from the water. Another look to the trees, and she saw a handful of things Aisling's size, but with moth-like wings and distinct malice in their eyes, each armed with little knitting needle-like swords. One more noise drew her eyes to the other side of the camp as a realization set in. They were surrounded. Then her eyes settled on a familiar face, the baseball cap, the jagged grin, and the eyes. As the red cap advanced on her, flanked by two others, Megan froze in terror.